This is a full self-driving stroller. Provides the best in autonomous strolling. And this is an AI-powered backpack that gives you 6 extra arms. A paper rock scissors simulation literally defied all odds. UPenn built a new AI model that's predicting over 1 million new antibiotics. Daisy Morgan investigates the opaque investment empire of OpenAI's Sam Altman. Turns out that the Humane AI pen not only sucks, but it can also set you on fire. MIT researchers built a tool that lets you simulate yourself in 30 years so that you can parent yourself. Cartwheel is this amazing looking new tool for generating animations. I mean, supposedly, because they don't let me play with it yet. I just have to take their word for it. And amazingly, there's a new AI model that can predict dementia 9 years before it happens with 80% accuracy. But before we dive into it, let's look at Alan's conservative countdown to AGI, and we are at 74% of the way there still. All right, what are your thoughts on this new, completely autonomous, self-driving stroller? I mean, how many mothers and fathers out there have wanted to just be hands-free when they take their children around the city or whatever? I mean, imagine turning your back to the stroller and then having it turn around and follow you, just like a lost puppy. And it looks like the autonomous stroller can sense hand gestures. Look at the come over here, spin around movement she's making. And how about this? Automatic braking on inclines. Regular strollers, you leave one alone on a hill, that baby might roll down the hill. That is the future of parenting. And of course, downhill safer, but what if you've got a fat baby and you're going uphill? That's so bad. That's so bad. Made more realistically, a heavy stroller. There's huge batteries in these things. You know how heavy Teslas are. Imagine a stroller, the equivalent. It's going to be the heaviest stroller around. So you lugging this thing uphill, now it can automatically go up for you. All right, what's with all these stupid unnecessary technology? This technology is making us behave less and less human. Some truth to that. I was wondering how much for one like that. Yeah, people are interested in the price. You could see lawsuits for what? If it drives away with your kid or something? That's never happening with my children. Not safe enough for me. I find this to be for lazy parents who have no interest in focusing on the child, but more on their phone. Ooh, shots fired. Here's one in Spanish. Let's see the translation. One lazy mom thing. Oh, when I say AI's in everything, I mean it. Everything. So what do you think about attaching 6 robotic arms to your backpack? So at a World Robotics Conference in Beijing, some people in China have done just that. This backpack allows you to have 6 robotic arms to add to the 2 that you already have. I mean, this makes sense. A lot of times you're probably feeling inadequate with just 2 arms and hands. Haven't you ever thought, gosh, what if I had another set and another set and another set and I had a full 8 arms and hands? I mean, I understand the appeal of building humanoid robots. I could see form factors that are not humanoid being super helpful. So extra arms could give it some power, but why put it on your back? And what are you going to do with it? Like, I'm not going to use something like that for typing. And if it was picking up boxes and stuff in front of me, I think I'd just rather step aside and let an entire robot pick up those boxes. I mean, maybe a firefighter could run into a building and it could, grab people and help carry them out better than a fully autonomous robot would. Oh, this guy's saying it's more of a lightsaber maneuver. I mean, lightsaber military use, that's one factor. Fighting Spider-Man. Yeah, that's another use case. Best drummer in the world. There you go. That's one thing I hadn't thought about. That would be insane drumming. Let's see here. Imagine wiping your butt, picking your nose, brushing your teeth, working from home, day trading, working out, and you still have 2 extra arms. Whoa. All right, I'm going to show you one of the best videos on the internet. This is a simulation of paper, rock, scissors. It starts out with random positions, but if you know Conway's Game of Life, you know that controlled positions, even simple ones, can turn into pure chaos. And you would never expect paper, rock, or scissors to get all the way down to just a single one and make a complete comeback. But watch this. Paper is around 50, rocks around 30, scissors is about 70, and now rocks looking really bad, looking all the way down to 20, back to 30, back to 40, back to 50. Paper, on the other hand, 50, 60. Look at that thing starting to dominate. 70 almost, and it keeps going down right now. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Paper left. And look, hits rock. Multiplies. The odds of this coming together. Paper is dominating the whole screen here. Scissors down to 0. Scissors is out of the game. Paper 120 takes out every other competitor, dominates the simulation. This is probably the greatest comeback in simulation history, let's be honest. Look, that one piece of paper took everything back. 68,000 likes. That's crazy. Taking out that last scissor proved to be the death sentence for rocks. Yeah, that was another problem Rock had, is that when it finally crushed the last scissor and there's only paper around, it was like, it's gonna get beat up, you know? For some reason, I just don't want scissors to win. I instantly was rooting against them. They're like the bad guys, you know what I mean? The instant hatred of scissors. Yeah, because they're all sharp and stuff. Don't run with scissors. I get that. Perhaps I need counseling after all. Who am I to say who needs counseling?
Why are we still here?
All right, so this one might come as quite a relief to you, because if for years you've heard about antibiotic-resistant bacteria potentially causing some serious damage to the world because of overuse, this article comforted me quite a bit in The Guardian. But AI was recently used to predict potential new antibiotics in groundbreaking study. And look, the research is urgent to public health, and this is for real stuff, right? No more paper, rock, scissors playing around. Antimicrobial resistance caused more than 1.2 million deaths in 2019, and it's been going up every year. There's some serious risks to how much we've overprescribed antibiotics. Number could increase to 10 million deaths by 2050. Can often take 10 to 20 years to get a new antibiotic to market. But here's where AI tools really make a difference. Machine learning predicted potential new antibiotics in the global microbiome. And this marks a significant advancement of the use of artificial intelligence in antibiotic resistance research. And look, this researcher has been using AI in antibiotic research for decades, so it's not a new thing. And we've talked about AlphaFold 3, which has already basically solved the protein folding problem. But it's amazing that this algorithm could find 1 million new potential molecules and then rapidly try to test all of them to see which ones could actually be worth building into a drug. The final study revealed 9 really promising candidates. The research data and the code, all open source, so this is going to be a big game changer. All researchers can build on this. All right, so investigative journalist Daisy Morgan decided to do some deep diving into what are all the investments that the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, has made. Like, I've always kind of wondered about him in some ways, because he's part of all of these startups through the Y Combinator history. He also seems to not hold equity in OpenAI, but he's also, as you'll see later in this article, estimated to be a billionaire. So what's going on? And if you watched my WorldCoin deep dive, I was actually very pro that project until I found out how much of the coins of the cryptocurrency him and investors owned, and I thought that skewed the whole kind of concept of using UBI to bring the world out of poverty. It just felt like a kind of a money grab when I really thought about who's benefiting the most. So he's CEO of OpenAI. OpenAI is valued through the roof, $86 billion, and honestly, it could be even higher than that. So if he was a majority shareholder, like the same way Elon Musk is, I would just say, oh, that's how he's rich. It's because OpenAI is this huge thing, like how Tesla made Elon rich. But he doesn't, and he makes 65 grand a year, has no ownership position in ChatGPT. And you might have seen in my last video that the average salary for the top researchers at OpenAI is almost $800,000 a year. All right, so look at this. As of early this year, the holdings he controls were valued at least $2.8 billion, according to reports from the Wall Street Journal and business filings. A significant portion of the portfolio is unknown. Like, what do you mean it's unknown? Like, he just has all these private investments and they're worth $2.8 billion? See, he estimates that through his venture fund, he's involved with over 400 startups, including well-known brands like Reddit, Airbnb, and Stripe. I mean, I guess he just made really good investments in startups. I mean, he certainly knew that scene really well and had access to all the right people, so maybe? Credit line from his long-standing personal bank, JP Morgan Chase, Altman has increased his startup stakes by hundreds of millions of dollars. Altman's approach is uncommon among other venture capitalists. I'm like, why is it so different? Is he just that much smarter than everyone? Is he just investing in all the companies that OpenAI is like partnering with? That's why he's like, oh, I'm just the CEO and I don't make any money, but then I partner with all these other companies that I own a bunch of. He owns 7.6% of Reddit. I don't know. It goes on and on and on. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but it's like, it's pretty fascinating. Like, he is quite the business person at the end of the day. Another interesting investment that he made was the Humane pin, you know, the one that like was universally hated, it seemed like, by everyone on YouTube, or at least it's like way too early to be useful. Sam Altman actually owns 15% of the company's shares through the holding companies. Now, ChatGPT has a new feature coming that I think is going to be really awesome, and that's just being able to talk to it in the background. Like, you might not think it's a big deal, but the main selling point, the reason I pay, what is it, like 12 or 15 bucks a month for YouTube is so that I can actually minimize it and still listen in podcast form while I do other stuff on my phone. So when I saw this feature, I was like, oh, that's a sleeper, because that's so much better to be able to play on your phone and be maybe looking on the internet or reading the news and actually having a conversation with ChatGPT in the background instead of switching back and forth all the time. That also might make it a bit more competitive with Siri or Alexa, where it's actually just kind of maybe on more often. But it still seems like Apple and Google will be in the driver's seat when it comes to controlling a lot of our apps using AI. So ChatGPT might fall out of favor a little bit. We'll see what Apple does at WWDC. If it hasn't happened yet when the filming of this video, but maybe by the time it comes out, you'll have already seen it. So we'll see how integrated they get and if they can compete with this. So, the Humane pen, which we talked about earlier, 15% owned by Sam Altman. It's out in the wild now. It kind of got that Star Trek vibe where you can tap on it and talk to it. It can project onto your hand. It can take photos for you from your chest's point of view. I think it was designed by the Apple guy, Johnny Ives. It was such a big thing when they did a quick little demo of it at TED. It felt like the future is here. And now that the YouTubers have their hands on it, Mr. Who's the Boss says it's not good. The Verge says a $700 gamble. Plus there's this fee I think you have to pay per month, like $25. Probably saw this one. Marquez Brown said it's the worst product I've ever reviewed. Almost nobody should buy it yet. I mean, I get it. It's an interesting direction they're going. But yeah, the world it's just not there unless you build out so much software to integrate it and to perfect it. It's coming. One day, a few years from now, a couple years even, that might be an interesting form factor. But I have to think that the camera buds on the ear make a lot more sense. I'd rather just hear it right in my ear instead of having it projecting out loud like that. Something like the Vision Pro, but slimmed down to the point where it's just glasses makes a lot of sense. I mean, smart hat, maybe something you could put in your nose, put up your nose, maybe like a nose plug or something. That could be a new form factor. You might want to build around that, Sam Altman. Listen, you can have 15% of the company for $800 million, and we will change the way that nostrils compute. Sorry, I forgot where I was, but they catch on fire now. That's the problem with the pins. Humane is telling AI pin owners today that they should, quote, immediately stop using the charging case that came with its AI gadget. There are issues with the third-party battery cell that may pose a fire safety risk. All right, so check this out. You can go and have a conversation thanks to the MIT Media Lab with yourself in the future and get advice on what you should be doing today. So this is Future Pat. He's a successful scientist from the future. And you and I, assuming I'm this person, I'm not obviously that guy. But assuming I am this younger Asian guy, and that's the older version of me, and he says, hey, I'm here to help you with your problems. And I want to give you some advice on how to overcome the challenges you may be facing to end up where I am today, which helps guide us into a better future. What would be a lesson that you would share to a new MIT Media Lab student like me? By the way, I've been to the MIT Media Lab. It is so cool. I have some of the most fond memories from touring that place. Anyhow, the most important lesson I've ever learned is that nothing is impossible, no matter how difficult it seems. So the thinking here is that you fine-tune a model to act just like you, but then you also project into the future what it is that you want to be. Imagine you're just getting into college, you want to be a paleontologist, and you have a lot of work to do still. Long road ahead of you, and if you can simulate exactly this position you're in today and your actual history up until that point, and then bridge that gap into a future version with AI helping to simulate all the in-between steps, you can get better advice along the way. You help stay on the right track. So in one conversation, a student who hoped to be a biology teacher asked the chatbot, a simulated 60-year-old version of herself, about what was the most rewarding moment in her career. I mean, it's kind of silly too, but it's also kind of powerful, right? We need a guide, and this is a guide that is you. So the chatbot said that it was a retired biology teacher in Boston and recalled this special moment when it helped a struggling student turn around their grades. It was so gratifying to see the student's face light up with the pride and accomplishment, the chatbot said back to this younger version. And now that you imagine that, in the future, maybe something like Sora could even show you, age your face and show you doing that to a student, and then imagine how that would lock into your brain. That's the symbiosis, where it's we train the model trains us. It's a fascinating application of behavioral science principles. It embodies the idea of nudging subtle interventions designed to guide behavior in beneficial ways by making the future more self-salient and relevant to the present. To demo this product, but unfortunately you can only sign up for the beta, or if you try to sign in, it doesn't really work. I haven't seen somebody designing this model, and at least from the thought, it's a very powerful tool. I'm working with a startup right now, and we're going to have an animated character. And one of the most expensive parts of the process is paying somebody to rig the character, to animate the character. And if you can have a 3D model that has a structure, a rigged bone structure, basically, that can be manipulated, and an AI system has found all these ways to make it move, and you have a correlation with how you can type in just text, that's a powerful tool. And I love this idea. Like, look at this character, say a quick jab, a karate kata, a boxing, a waltz, act drunk, play tennis. Imagine the powerful things you could string together with language. You say you walk into the bar and you subtly look at somebody mysterious and then they look away and the bartender is like knows something's up but is trying not to give away the cards. If you could just type all this stuff out and you have these 3D models in any kind of environment, or if they can even read like a movie script or something and play it out that way, and this tool is just animating all of that on the fly, or some kind of video game where you walk into a room and like the way that you generate images and they're different every time, even with the same prompt, maybe like a high five is just different every time and it creates a sense of realism. So this is how the interface looks, but of course this isn't like real for me, but I can zoom in, I can move around the character. It's fully 3D in that sense. And I should be able to change chop wood to, you know, stand on one leg and then animate. But of course it's going to be like, you've got to be logged in and I can't log in because I'm on the waiting list or whatever. But this seems like a really powerful tool. I mean, you could imagine exporting or creating animations this way. If anybody knows a way to get me a working access to this, I'll put it in my next video. Let's talk about how AI is helping predict dementia, not a week, a month, a year, 5 years, 9 years before it hits. So the team developed this test by analyzing functional MRI, the fMRI scans for changes to the brain in a part that's called the default mode network. Oh, we could go into that in another video, but there's some interesting stuff there. But fMRI scans can analyze the brain's default mode network, which is the area first affected by Alzheimer's disease, and that's part of why the accuracy is so high. So instead of thinking about like shrinking and growing or certain parts of the brain, they're examining the connectivity patterns within the network. So after looking at more than 1,000 volunteers, they were able to assign a, quote, probability of dementia value to each individual based on the way the connections were kind of dying off or changing. So you take information like that, and then you also consider factors like genetic risk and social isolation and some of the other things that are associated with it. That combination is how it can be so accurate and so early. But it's just another amazing example of machine learning applied to interesting data sets and artificial intelligent models that can make a difference in the lives of all of us. All right, I finally have Grimlock working again. I've been waiting to do this for like a dozen videos now. Grimlock, transform. So in all my videos, I like to go from news to research. I was hoping I could say Grimlock, transform into research. Transform. There we go. Got it. Check this out. Transforming into the research section.
It's extinction time.
It's not extinction time. It's time for the research section of the video. I'm just so pleased that worked. That's amazing. All right, so the first research I want to talk about comes out of Stanford AI, and they were trying to mirror the way that the brain is organized in digital form. They developed a new artificial intelligence model dubbed the Topographic Deep Artificial Neural Network, the TDANN. And it's different from any other model that's out there right now because it mirrors the human brain's visual information organizational system. So I think I've only partially got my head around this breakthrough, but I know that it involves the naturalistic input and spatial constraints that the human brain has from being actually a three-dimensional brain in three-dimensional space, observing three-dimensional objects. So the result is that this AI model not only processes images like a human brain would, but it also organizes its neurons in similar ways. Oh, I forgot he just kind of moves like that sometimes, huh? While he's standing there? Or what? You running out of power? What's this all about? So this is 7 years of research culminating in this publication. So the paper is called A Unifying Framework for Functional Organizational in Early and Higher Ventral Visual Cortex. All right, are we gonna keep doing this? What's going on here? Transform.
Nope.
But the thing about this is that it's giving us some evidence for how our brain works. The results are a unified principle for understanding the functional organization of the primate ventral visual system. For example, it seems like this might have some clues into why the brain operates with so much efficiency. What is going on with you? All right, look, I'm having trouble focusing. I'm gonna need to turn you off now.
Goodbye, friend. Goodbye.
That's how you're gonna turn off? So But for example, if we better train the way an artificial visual system is in the same way that a baby visualizes learning about the world, it might help an AI to see the world more like a human, where the center of the gaze is sharper than the rest of the field of view. So that's interesting too. Like if you're, of course, it's like much more clear, much more attention in what I'm looking at. And then I see in the peripheral vision, just, God, I want to say blurry, but even blurry feels wrong. Like it's just not till, you know, a bug or something quick moves and you glance over. It's like I'm aware of it if it pulls my attention away, but I could see it if it's worth seeing, but I don't see it most of the time because my attention's centered. So I wonder if a model like this might have something similar like that going on. I don't know, just food for thought. All right, so what's introduced in this paper is called ZeroSmooth, and it is meant to make better, super smooth, high frame rate videos without the headache of extra training. So normally when you see these AI generated videos, you'll notice they're kind of low frame rate and they're often pretty wonky. So I guess it's sort of similar to some of those tools that can like add frames in between frames to make things look smoother in slow motion. But it's aware of where the features in the diffusion model were coming from, so it can do a better job of that in terms of like AI generation stuff. So it's actually tweaking what are called the hidden states of the video model. And that's what helps ensure that the jump between frames doesn't lose the plot or the quality or the same feature set. But why don't we just look at the examples together to see what we think about it. All right, so here's the original keyframes. You can see this dog on the left. This looks more like a traditional clunky thing. 2x and 4x interpolation, meaning it's adding more frames and smoothing it out with that hidden state. And okay, and like I'm just gonna zoom in here on the dog's right paw, and it's smoother, but honestly the keyframe on the first one felt more like an actual paw missing frames, whereas that one seems like it's morphing too much. All right, let's look at this panda. Now, in terms of the panda, the water looks much better. Like, it did a great job. I feel much more like real splash there. That's weird. It looks great on the water, but I feel like the panda isn't so great. It is smoother. Like, it is very smooth, but I'm not seeing the consistency. Oh, okay, the whale looks great. I mean, the sunrise looks nicer. Like, the sunset reflection off the water looks nicer. Man, the flag looks much better, although it's like feels way too windy on the moon for what it should. And I do like the way the rocket goes. So yeah, I can see the progress in it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a perfect final product, but in terms of water, smoke, like the rocket fuel, it did seem like it did a much better job adding in interpolating. So now let's dive into what Jesus Rodriguez says is the most important paper of the year. Anthropic's dictionary learning is a breakthrough towards understanding LLMs. I really think understanding these LLMs is like one of the most important things we can be working on as a society. They're just so above us right now, and they can't be that unknown if we want to have any chance of surviving the singularity. So the stuff that's coming out of Anthropic, I think, is really worth diving into, paying attention to, telling your friends about, getting interested in yourself. So I'm going to do the same, and we're going to talk about it. Okay, so what's happening here is Anthropic's got their model Claude. It's kind of like ChatGPT if you don't know it. And their new technique for understanding what individual, I guess, mono meanings are, like points of meaning, ideas, objects, something like that, they're calling dictionary learning. And the goal is to try to get these obscure inner meanings to actually mean something to us. So they're trying to build a dictionary out of the obscure meaning inside these models. So we should be able to find a specific concept. And I know concept seems a little abstract too, but maybe you could think of it as a word or a feature or even a behavior. Maybe it could be any of those four, but that's what I'm talking about. And to find these points, they're using autoencoders to search around and find something that looks like it has meaning and then autoencode it. And what's an autoencoder? Well, that's a piece of software that learns a representation. And a representation of what? Well, that depends on the data that you're feeding it. So in a data set that represents images, it might find edges, lines, things that contrast more than other things. In a data set full of numbers, it might find groupings. If they represent, say, people or demographics, it might be able to find those demographics as a feature. You want a specific neuron, like in this case, to represent the Golden Gate Bridge, or if you've read The Forgetting Machine, the famous Jennifer Aniston neuron, the single neuron that in that guy's brain would fire only when Jennifer Aniston concepts were made. So for this to work, we have to make a couple assumptions. One is called the linear representation hypothesis. And I think scientists generally think this is right, but I think it needs to be proved out more. But it's the idea that neural networks represent important concepts, the features that we talked about, as specific directions in in their internal spaces, but super trigonometry to like a billion dimensional space. But that's kind of what's still happening. So everything's a vector. It's an arrow. It's got a magnitude and it's got a direction. Everything is like next to one another, and we're measuring the distances, the angles between them all. Think about like trigonometry happening when you're doing next word prediction. So because there's so many directions something can be, and I know it sounds weird, but it's not three-dimensional. Remember, there's all these mathematical dimensions on it. So it has way more ways that things can actually be like angled compared to others, but we'll think about it in 3D because we're just humans. Their work, this dictionary suggests that there's a specific angle, like a direction that could be the Jennifer Aniston direction. Dinosaur, Golden Gate Bridge, concepts that we have in our head that have been formed from learning the reality that we're in now have a specific direction that we can find. So the dictionary is pointing to that direction. Now, there's another hypothesis that needs to hold true. It's called the superposition hypothesis. And it's the idea that the neural network can represent more features than there are numbers of dimensions available by using nearly orthogonal, almost perpendicular directions in high dimensional spaces. There's also this argument that there's directions like left, right, up, down, but in this higher dimensional space. And then there's also things that are like almost right, left, up, down that can end up being their own representations also. So we have to factor that in. And if both of those hypotheses end up being true, then the method of dictionary learning could be a valid way to understand what's happening inside of these systems. And the early research shows that it might actually work that way. And this is something well worth understanding and pursuing, even though I like butchered it and I barely have my head around it. And I know I didn't do a great job. There's a nugget of truth that I've grabbed onto that I'm hoping to share with you, but I could use tons more research on this myself. But the idea of a sparse autoencoder and the ability to think about certain concepts being pointed in a direction, I think is kind of the key things that I kind of latched onto. So if you've been following my YouTube journey and you get even 1/10 as excited as I do when videos do really well, you might be excited about this. My video from 3 days ago got 7,000 freaking views, and I only have 13,000 subscribers, so that's like more than a 50% ratio. And my other video, which is only 1 day old and it might still keep going up, is already at 6,000 views, 5.8, but well, let's round up. So the quick breakdown, I made $41 on that video, 7,400 views, 1,000 hours of watch time, 118 new subscribers. Good to see you guys. Mostly people were recommended this from their homepage or their up next. A few of you are starting to subscribe, direct unknown. That could be people sharing it in a Discord or something. YouTube loves when there's new links out there on the internet bringing people onto their platforms. Look at that, full 1% female, kicking butt. 25% of you use English subtitles. Do you speak English, or are you just like the subtitles on as like a double thing, or is it about translation? Let me know. Tiango T is his or her name, and they said, nice outro, but here's an idea. And I love this idea. This is why I'm sharing it with you. Now, I don't know if it's a good or bad idea, but it's an idea, and I don't know either. But we should get some good AI to summarize the video script, and then he's got some ideas for how we could make a song from that, and I thought, I know exactly how we could do that. Here's all the chapter markers for the video, and I've been having good luck with pop.
Self-driving stroller, provide autonomous strolling. AI-powered backpack robot, give you 6 extra arms. Paper boxes or simulation defies the odds.
And that's crazy. Smash subscribe, leave a super thanks, or
It's extinction time.